Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
Shadows and Serpentes by Alenthedragon. This is a fan fiction about what if Luffy eat a different devil fruit instead of the gum fruit. He will have the dragon fruit, model dragon of darkness and shadows. He is joined by Hancock, who is his age here, and has a different fruit as well. Hope you like it. Adios.
In the early morning light of Syrup Village, the familiar sounds of clattering and naivety filled the air. A certain long-nosed boy known as Usopp was starting his day with what he thought was the most vital duty, alerting the villagers. "Pirates are coming! Pirates are coming!" Usopp shouted, melodrama dripping from his voice as he ran through the streets with fervor. His cries, however, were met with anger and annoyance from the villagers. "You damn liar! Shut up, Usopp! You're waking everyone up!" One man yelled, his frustration palpable. "Yeah, go and tell your crap to someone else. I swear, Usopp, your lies will be the death of you." Another villager chimed in, waving his arms dismissively. Usopp merely chuckled, his bravado unwavering despite the scorn he faced. "They'll thank me when they see the real pirates." With a triumphant smile, he dashed toward the coast, eager to check the horizon for any signs of adventure or trouble. As he reached the shoreline, he was greeted by three familiar faces, his friends and fellow Usopp pirates, Carrot, Onion, and Paprika. "Good morning, everyone," Usopp greeted, puffing out his chest, feeling emboldened by the presence of his loyal crew. The Usopp pirates are ready for action. The three kids, each sporting their own unique flair, stood proudly with him, always eager for the next thrilling adventure they could conjure up together. Just as they were about to plan their day, Usopp's keen eyes spotted something on the horizon, and his heart raced with both excitement and trepidation. A large black ship was approaching the coast, its figure looming ominously over the water. But what caught his attention even more was the flag flying high above. It was unmistakable. "Real pirates. Oh no, it can't be!" Usopp exclaimed in a mix of panic and anxiety, his voice of urgency ringing out. "Run! They're pirates! To your positions now!" The three friends, ever loyal, scrambled to prepare for whatever might come their way. "We'll scare them off," Carrot whined, his heart pounding in his chest as they grabbed makeshift weapons and stood ready, emboldened by Usopp's unwavering spirit. "Let's show them what the Usopp pirates are made of," Usopp shouted, pointing dramatically toward the approaching ship, trying to muster the confidence he needed to defend their village. As the black ship drew closer, they could see figures moving about on deck. Little did Usopp know, this ship held the newest crew members of the Shadow Dragon Pirates, Luffy, Hancock, Kobe, and Zoro, setting their sights on a potential recruit. With courage surging through him, Usopp straightened his posture, attempting to embody the fearless captain he aspired to be. Unbeknownst to him, fate had aligned for an incredible opportunity, one that would change his life forever. As Luffy, Hancock, and the rest of the Shadow's Sorrow crew stood on the shore of Syrup Village, the excitement of the moment was palpable. Nami rode on her massive lion, Richie, the sight adding to the spectacle as they surveyed the vibrant area. Hancock turned to Luffy, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "So, this is Usopp's home island. And you're interested in recruiting his son?" With a brilliant smile, Luffy nodded, filled with enthusiasm. "Yep, if he's as good of a shot as his dad, then I definitely want him on the crew." Just then, Usopp jumped out from behind the bushes, his bravado shining through despite the tremor of uncertainty in his voice. "Pirates, you are on the island of the great Captain Usopp and his 80 million followers. So, leave at once." To his dismay, the crew erupted into laughter, unable to hold back at Usopp's exaggerated proclamation. Pirate flags unfurled from the bushes, as a display of bravado that was both absurd and hilarious. "Oh my goodness, that is hilarious," Luffy hooted, nearly doubling over with laughter. 80 million followers. "Come on, you can't even fit that many people here." "Yeah, and the only ones here are you and those three kids hiding in the bushes," Hancock added, still chuckling at the scene unfolding before them. Hearing their jests, the three kids hiding jumped out in shock before immediately turning to flee, clearly scared. "Hey, you three, come back, don't leave me," Usopp cried out, frustration mixing with determination. As his followers ran away, Usopp pulled out his slingshot, aiming it at Luffy with shaky hands. "Filthy pirates. I won't let you pillage my village. I am the best shot in the East Blue." Luffy, seeing an opportunity for some enjoyable fun, grinned wickedly. "Oh, we've got ourselves a hero here, huh? Well, unlike you and those brats who are running for the hills, we are real pirates." With a swift motion, he drew his sword, pointing it playfully at Usopp. "If you draw a weapon, you better be ready to use it." Usopp's confidence wavered as he felt a wave of anxiety wash over him. He stammered, sweating profusely now. The reality of facing a pirate, a real one at that, began to sink in. "Maybe we should, talk about this." Luffy burst into laughter, his eyes filled with mirth. "Man, you are a bad liar. You are definitely Usopp's son," he said, amusement ringing in every word. Usopp, feeling a newfound sense of camaraderie and trust in the crew surrounding him, was curious about their connection to his father. "You know my dad?" he asked Luffy, hope and excitement mingling in his tone. "Yeah," Luffy nodded, his voice cheerful. "He's a great guy." Quote. As they made their way to a local diner, Luffy and Hancock took turns sharing tales about Usopp's adventures, painting vibrant pictures of the legendary sniper's exploits. Usopp listened intently, a mix of admiration and nostalgia flooding his heart. Yet, they deftly omitted the part about Usopp being Shanks' left-hand man, respecting the chilly silence surrounding that particular history. Suddenly, Usopp's expression shifted as realization dawned on him. "I need to go," he exclaimed, standing up abruptly. As Usopp hurried out of the diner, the remaining members of the crew finished up their meals, enjoying the casual camaraderie that had blossomed between them. Moments later, the three kids who had followed Usopp burst through the door, brandishing wooden swords with flair. "Where's Captain Usopp?" they demanded, eyes wide with determination. Before anyone could respond, they spotted Luffy rubbing his stomach, satisfied after enjoying a hearty meal. With an impish grin, Zoro stepped forward, the corner of his mouth twitching in amusement. "Your captain was delicious," he teased, unable to resist the opportunity for some light-hearted banter. The three kids froze, their expressions shifting from confusion to fear. "Ah, witches!" they screamed, pointing toward Hancock, Nami, and Alvida, panic overtaking them. Nami, her eyes narrowing at the accusation, couldn't contain her irritation. "You three brats, how dare you call me a witch?" she admonished, swinging her fist and lightly tapping all three on the head. "One more comment like that, and I'll feed you to my lion." The boys rubbed their sore heads, wide-eyed and trembling. They quickly changed their tone. "Okay, we're sorry," they stammered, recognizing the fierce spirit in the woman standing before them. Zoro watched in amusement as the scene unfolded before him, shaking his head at the antics. "Usopp just went out a few minutes ago, he said he had something to do." Their expressions shifted to one of realization. Captain Usopp is going to see Miss Kaya. She's sick, and he always tells her stories to make her feel better. One of the boys explained, a mixture of pride and concern spilling forth. The revelation struck a chord within Nami, and she softened, her earlier irritation fading. "That's sweet of him," she said, her demeanor shifting as she considered the bond Usopp shared with Kaya. "He really cares about her." As they exited the diner, the three kids eagerly led Luffy, Hancock, Zoro, Nami, Alvida, and Kobe through the winding streets of Syrup Village. They filled the air with their chatter, excitedly explained Usopp visited her every day, they said, and Kaya happened to be the owner of the island's shipbuilding company. Once they arrived at Kaya's mansion, a beautiful structure adorned with elegant architecture, the kids pointed to a large tree in the backyard where Usopp often made his daring entries. "That's where he usually comes in," one of the kids said, giggling. As they approached, they spotted Usopp proudly perched on a tree branch, animatedly recounting one of his tales to a young girl at the window, who laughed sweetly at his antics. "Hey, Usopp, so this is your girlfriend?" Luffy called out, unable to suppress a teasing grin. Usopp's face flushed a deep shade of red, and he glanced down at Luffy, caught off guard. What? No, she's not my girlfriend," he exclaimed, clearly flustered. "Looks like you're caught, Usopp," Hancock teased, enjoying the light-hearted banter. Luffy focused on the girl in the window, now stifling her laughter. "You must be Miss Kaya," he said, waving enthusiastically. I'm a friend of Usopp, and I heard that you own the shipbuilding company on this island. Kaya smiled, her eyes warm and inviting, seeming relieved to meet Luffy and his crew. Yes, that's me. It's nice to meet you. Usopp speaks highly of his friends. Awesome. We're planning some upgrades for our ship, and I'd like to discuss doing business with you. Luffy said eagerly, his enthusiasm infectious. Sure, I'd love to help. What exactly do you need? Kaya replied, her curiosity piqued. Just then, a man suddenly appeared in the courtyard, bustling in with a serious demeanor. It was her butler, Klahadore, a stout man with an air of authority. Miss Kaya, I need to speak with you, he declared, eyeing the new arrivals with a look of mild suspicion. Hold on a second, Usopp called down from the tree, having seen the butler's arrival. This is my friend Luffy and his crew. They want to talk about ship upgrades, so let them through. Klahadore looked at Kaya with a mixture of authority and concern. Miss Kaya, who are these people? I'm afraid they must leave, he said, his tone clipped as he shifted his gaze to Usopp. Didn't I tell you to get out of here and stop spinning your tails? Kaya tried to defuse the situation, raising her hands in a placating manner. Klahadore, please. They're friends of Usopp, she insisted, her voice steady. But Klahadore pressed on, ignoring her plea, his voice dripping with disdain. Oh, come on. I know that you're after Miss Kaya's money. What else could be expected from the son of a two-bit pirate who abandoned his family? Usopp's face flushed with anger, his fists clenching tightly. He wanted to retaliate, but before he could lash out, Luffy stepped forward, glaring at Klahadore. Man, butler, you must have a death wish. Klahadore, unfazed and arrogant, met Luffy's fierce gaze. Oh really? Then let me add to that. His father is a two-bit pirate, and his mother was a... Before he could finish his comment, Luffy swiftly unsheathed his sword, pointing it ominously close to Klahadore's neck. The tension in the room thickened, and both Kaya and Usopp gasped in shock, fear etched across their faces. Do you really want to lose your head? Luffy questioned, his voice low and serious, a stark contrast to his earlier jovial nature. Klahadore's bravado faltered as he felt the cold steel close against his skin. Wah, what are you doing? He stuttered, a flicker of fear betraying his confident demeanor. Usopp's father, Yasopp, is the sniper and left-hand man of the Yonko, red-haired Shanks, Luffy declared, his intensity unwavering. And my name is Monkey D. Luffy, bounty 600 million belly, and this is Boa Hancock, bounty 550 million belly. We are former members of Shanks' crew, and Yasopp is our friend. So tell me, do you have the balls to repeat what you just said? Klahadore's bravado crumbled entirely under the weight of Luffy's proclamation. Looking between Luffy's fierce glare and the astonished expressions of everyone around him, he realized he had underestimated the young pirates before him. As Luffy sheathed his sword, he sensed the tension. Usopp, Kaya, and Klahadore were still visibly shaken at the revelation of Luffy and Hancock's powerful identities. The implications of their presence reverberated, as they had just witnessed the untamed spirit of the Shadow Dragon pirates. We will be leaving, Miss Kaya. We'll have to discuss our business another time, Luffy stated, his tone respectful yet firm. Kaya nodded, still processing everything. I understand. Thank you for your understanding. She respected Luffy's decisiveness and felt a mix of admiration and apprehension about the crew's powerful nature. Luffy then turned his attention back to Klahadore, stepping closer, his expression serious. If you ever disrespect a member of Shanks' crew again, you're a dead man. Do I make myself clear? Klahadore, trembling slightly under Luffy's intensity, nodded quickly, swallowing hard. Why yes, understood. With that, Luffy and Hancock exited the mansion, their camaraderie strong as they faced the world that awaited them outside. Alvida, Kobe, and Salome followed closely, feeling emboldened by their allies' strength. Outside, Usopp felt overwhelmed. In need of a moment to cool down, he headed toward the cliffs nearby, the salt air cutting through his earlier anxiety. As he gazed out over the vast ocean, he took a deep breath, trying to center himself after all the intense revelations. As he leaned against a rocky outcropping, he noticed Klahadore speaking to a strange-looking man not too far away. Intrigued, he quietly moved closer, attempting to listen in without being noticed. The man was tall and lean, with wild hair and a somewhat scruffy appearance. "Captain Koro, we're ready to proceed," he stated nonchalantly, bringing Usopp's attention immediately to the conversation. Klahadore looked at him with anger in his eyes. "Don't call me that, Django. And we have a problem," he snapped. As Usopp lurked in the shadows, listening intently to Kalidor and Django's conversation, he suddenly felt a presence creeping up behind him. Before he could react, Luffy popped into view, startling him. "Whoa, Luffy, don't do that," Usopp exclaimed, nearly jumping out of his skin. Luffy simply smiled, his playful nature shining through. "Shish, just listen to them." Usopp edged closer as Luffy listened to Kalidor and Django continuing their discussion, still unaware of their presence. "Captain Koro, what's the problem?" Django asked, his brow furrowing slightly as he glanced at Kalidor. Kalidor pulled out 2 wanted posters, revealing Luffy's and Hancock's faces, each adorned with a substantial bounty. The mere sight of them drained color from Django's face. "This is the problem. 2 Grand Line pirates are here. From the stories I've heard about them, they have devil fruits as well." Right then, laughter erupted from Luffy, who couldn't contain himself at the situation. Django jumped, having heard the sound, his eyes widening in alarm. "Who is there?" he shouted, scanning the surroundings. Luffy popped out from his hiding place, a mischievous glimmer in his eye. Well, what do we have here? Kalidor, or should I call you Kuro of the 1000 Plans?" The shock on both Kalidor and Django's faces was palpable as they took in Luffy's presence. "You knew?" Kalidor stammered, anger fueling him further. "Yep," Luffy nodded cheerfully. "Before Hancock and I came here, we studied every bounty poster of notable pirates in the East Blue. I remembered your face and figured you'd be trouble." Kuro's face twisted in rage and disbelief. "What do you want, brat? You're messing with things you don't understand." "Oh, I understand just fine," Luffy said, unfazed. "But I'm curious, what's your plan?" At his question, Kalidor exchanged a nervous glance with Django, both realizing that they were dealing with someone they had underestimated. "Why should I tell you anything?" Kuro snapped. "Because if you don't, I'll be forced to show my new, improved powers," Luffy replied, his voice turning serious. "And I really don't think you want that." Seeing Luffy's confidence, Django spoke up. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Maybe we can make a deal." Luffy's expression turned sharp as he looked at Kuro. "Let's not play games here. I can guess what you're up to." His tone was unwavering, confidence radiating from him. "Judging by the fact that you're officially dead and your refusal to let anyone near Kaya, I believe you want her money." Kuro's anger flared, but he immediately recognized the power standing before him. He knew that provoking Luffy would only lead to his downfall, so instead he narrowed his eyes, seething but silent. "Lucky for you," Luffy continued, "I think your old crew is going to attack soon. How about a deal? Hancock and I won't fight, but my new crew could use a field test. If your men can get past them, I won't stop you from achieving your goals. Do we have a deal?" Kuro hesitated, weighing the risk versus the potential reward. Just then, Usopp jumped out of the bushes, his heart racing and his thoughts frantic. "Luffy, are you crazy? This guy wants to hurt Kaya," he shouted, alarmed. "Don't worry. This idiot and his crew won't even get past the coast with you guys around," Luffy assured him, a light-hearted tone underscoring the seriousness of their situation. Suddenly, a realization hit Usopp like a wave. "What do you mean, us?" he stuttered, his eyes widening in surprise. Luffy grinned slyly. "Well, you're fighting as well. And don't try to back out of this, or I'll tell Kaya that you hid while pirates were attacking this island." Usopp gulped, fear washing over him at the thought of Kaya being disappointed in him. Okay, I guess I'm in," he said, his voice a mix of reluctance and resolve. Kuro watched the exchange with a smirk, sensing an opportunity amid the chaos. "You think it's wise to include him as part of your crew? That coward won't stand a chance against real pirates," he taunted. Luffy stepped forward, his expression steadfast. "I believe in my friends. You underestimate us, Kuro. We're ready for anything. Besides, it's not just about strength, it's about heart. And Usopp's got plenty of that." With a begrudging nod, Kuro recognized the potential threat that Luffy's crew posed, an unease settling over him. "Fine. If this is how you want it," let's see what you're made of, he conceded, though his pride still bristled. The stage was set for a confrontation, and as the crew prepared, the realization struck them, this wouldn't just be a battle for survival, but a declaration of their newly formed identity as the Shadow Dragon Pirates. Luffy and Usopp made their way back to where their friends were gathered, a sense of urgency and excitement coursing through Luffy as he recounted what had occurred with Kuro and the plan. Upon hearing his story, Zoro, Nami, Alvida, and Kobe exchanged eager glances. Well, I don't care what you say. I want to test myself against pirates. Zoro declared, a fierce grin plastered on his face. Me too, Nami added, her excitement palpable. It'll be a chance to see how far we've come. Feeling a sense of unity, everyone nodded in agreement, their readiness to face whatever was coming filled the air with energy. Meanwhile, Luffy approached Richie and Salome, ensuring they were settled. You two need to keep an eye on Kaya just in case Kuro tries anything. I trust you to protect her, he instructed, confidence flowing in his words. As dawn approached along the coastline, Zoro, Nami, Alvida, Usopp, and Kobe stood on the shore, prepared for a confrontation with Kuro and his crew. Luffy and Hancock, lying back on a blanket nearby, enjoyed a picnic while keeping watch. Suddenly, a shadow crossed over the water, a ship emerged on the horizon, an unsettling sight that only grew clearer as it drew closer. It was the Black Cat Pirates, led by Django, the hypnotist. As the ship approached the shore, the crew erupted in raucous laughter, mocking the five standing ready. Look at those weaklings. What do you think you can do against us? Django jeered, his face splitting into a malicious grin. But their laughter quickly turned to shock. In one swift motion, Kobe stretched his arm and delivered a powerful punch to a crew member, sending him flying backwards. You're not going to bully us. Kobe shouted, newfound courage igniting within him. Nami transformed into her panther hybrid mode, her sleek body glimmering as she charged towards the menacing crew, claws gleaming with a fresh determination. She slashed through the air, effortlessly taking down another pirate with swift strikes. Zoro stepped forward, gripping his sword tightly, and with a fierce cry cut through the oncoming enemies like they were mere paper. I'll show you what a real swordsman can do, he declared, enthusiasm fueling his movements. Alvida, wielding her mace with newfound skill and confidence, swung at the attacking pirates, knocking them back with powerful strikes. You pathetic losers thought you could come here without consequences, she bellowed, sending another pirate sprawling to the ground. Luffy and Hancock watched with pride and excitement as their friends fought valiantly. This is what I was talking about. Look at them go, Luffy cheered, the thrill of the battle lighting up his spirit. As the battle raged on between the Shadow Dragon Pirates and the Black Cat Pirates, a new figure emerged from the shadows of the chaos. Kuro appeared, clutching a sports bag tightly in his hand. The remaining Black Cat Pirates began to cheer at his arrival, thinking he might rally them for one last stand. However, Kuro silenced them with a glare, his expression dark and foreboding. Shut up, he commanded, his voice cold and cutting through the cheers. They fell silent, confusion replacing their enthusiasm. Kuro turned his attention to Luffy and Hancock, his posture reflecting a surprising twist of resolve. I surrender, he announced, surprising everyone present. Both Luffy gave bewildered glances. Why are you giving up? Luffy asked, genuinely curious about Kuro's sudden change of heart. Kuro let out a sigh, the weight of his choices heavy on his shoulders. Well, two things made me surrender, he explained. First, I know that I cannot defeat you. Your strength is undeniable. He paused, taking a breath before continuing. And the second, although I was after Kaya's money, I can't kill her. That girl and her parents took me in when I was in need. I told Kaya my plans today, and she just hugged me and told me that she forgives me. The admission hung in the air, and the crew felt a mixture of respect and astonishment. It was a bold move for Kuro, a clear indication that he realized the error of his ways and the strength of compassion. However, the mood quickly shifted again when the remaining Black Cat Pirates, furious with Kuro's betrayal, began to grumble amongst themselves. What are you doing? Get him! One yelled, and panic surged through their ranks. Let's attack the village and kill Kuro in the process. Before they could react, Kuro was quick to retaliate. Out of his sports bag, he pulled two cat claws, each armed with large blades attached. Using his speed, he lunged at his former crew members, cutting through them with precision as if he had been practiced for this very moment. "You think you can threaten me?" Kuro shouted, slicing through the chaos as if he were a butcher cleaving meat. One by one, the Black Cat pirates fell, shocked by the betrayal of their captain, their audacity crumbling under his onslaught. In sheer panic, the remaining pirates scrambled for their ship. "Run! Get out of here!" they yelled, abandoning ship and fleeing the scene without a second thought, their camaraderie disintegrating in the face of a once loyal captain now turned against them. With the last remnants of the Black Cat pirates fleeing into the distance, Luffy turned to Kuro, an eyebrow raised. "So, looks like you really are siding with us now, huh?" Kuro, still catching his breath from the intensity of the battle, nodded slowly. "I have no intention of going back to that life. I'd rather ally with stronger pirates than be associated with those losers." Luffy grinned broadly as Hancock stepped forward, crossing her arms with an approving smile. "Well, if you're truly ready to embrace your new path, welcome aboard the Shadow Dragon pirates." As the preparations for departure fell into place, Luffy turned to Usopp, who had decided to join his crew. With a broad grin, Luffy asked him, "So, are you ready for this adventure?" "Absolutely," Usopp replied, filled with enthusiasm. The idea of sailing with Luffy and having the chance to take on new challenges thrilled him. With newfound confidence, Luffy approached Kaya, who stood a little further away, still processing the whirlwind of events. "So, Kaya, do you want to join us as well?" he asked, a hopeful gleam in his eyes. Kaya was taken aback by the question. "Me? But why do you want me to join? Kuro is my friend, and Usopp as well, but I hate to leave them," she hesitated, uncertainty flickering across her face. "Because you're a really good medic and nurse," Luffy cut in, his tone earnest. "You'd be welcomed aboard, and when we find a doctor, you can train under him. Just think about the adventures we could have together." Kaya's heart raced as she considered Luffy's offer. She loved helping people, and the thought of being part of a crew that sought to explore and bring about change was thrilling. I don't know." Luffy's excited expression didn't waver. "Come on, join us. You could be part of the Shadow Dragon pirates." Kaya weighed the realities of leaving her home and her friends against the dreams of adventure Luffy painted so vividly. After a moment of contemplation, she nodded, her resolve strengthening. "Okay, I'll join your crew." "Awesome," Luffy cheered, thrilled at her acceptance. As they prepared to set sail, excitement filled the air, and the crew looked forward to their new adventure together. Once they pushed off from the docks of Syrup Village, a party atmosphere erupted on board the Shadow's Sorrow. The crew celebrated their new alliances, welcoming Usopp and Kuro into their fold while cherishing Kaya's commitment to join them as well. With the ship sailing smoothly beneath them, Luffy called out the newly formed roster for the Shadow Dragon pirates. Captain, Monkey D. Luffy. Vice Captain, Boa Hancock. Navigator, Nami. Helmswoman, Alvida. Cabin Boy, Kobe. Quartermaster, Zoro. Strategist, Kuro. Sniper, Usopp. Medic, Kaya. Pets, Salome, Richie. Cheers erupted as each crew member raised their glass in celebration, realizing that they were becoming a unique team of unparalleled strength. Luffy thrived on the camaraderie, reveling in the excitement of their shared ambition. 2 days had passed since the crew officially set sail on the Shadow's Sorrow, and the energy aboard the ship was electric as they continued their training. Zoro, Nami, Alvida, and Kobe had begun to excel in using observation haki, honing their skills and developing a heightened sense of awareness. Meanwhile, Usopp, Kuro, and Kaya were still learning the basics, taking tips from their increasingly skilled crewmates. While they were making progress, it became clear that Luffy's and Hancock's abilities were extraordinary, and the stories of Luffy's lineage added to the awe and respect among the crew. The shock of learning about Luffy's heritage as Monkey D. Dragon's son and the tie to the fearsome red-haired Shanks left a lasting impression on them, who never expected their captain to be of such incredible lineage. When Luffy and Hancock demonstrated their powers, Kuro and Kaya were left in a state of disbelief, and Usopp simply fainted on the spot, overwhelmed by the display of power. One day after training, Luffy summoned Kaya over to him, excitement bubbling inside him. "Kaya, I have something for you," he said, pulling out a unique devil fruit. "This is the Guro Guro no Mi, the Rumble Rumble fruit. Kaya's eyes widened as she looked at the fruit, understanding the significance of what was being offered. "You want me to eat this?" she asked, hesitating at first, aware of the risks and rewards of consuming a devil fruit. "Yep. Hancock and I got it a year ago when we were on Sky Island. Some idiot named Enel was posing as a god. We took him down and claimed his fruit," Luffy explained proudly. Kaya glanced at the fruit, its swirling patterns and rich colors capturing her attention. "But, what if I can't handle it? What if I can't control it?" she asked, her voice wavering. Luffy leaned closer, offering reassurance. "You have the spirit and strength to take this on. Just think of the power you'll gain. You can be a Thunder Woman." After a moment's pause, Kaya took a deep breath. "All right, I'll give it a try." With resolve, she bit into the fruit, the flavor exploding in her mouth, and it was disgusting. The transformation began almost instantly. A surge of energy coursed through Kaya, electrifying her body. She gasped as an incredible power enveloped her, and soon the lights around her flickered in response. As the energy subsided, she blinked, feeling entirely different. "Wow, I feel incredible," Kaya exclaimed, looking at herself with wonder as she embraced her newfound abilities. "Now you can use your powers to help us," Luffy cheered, thrilled at her transformation. Meanwhile, Kuro and Usopp watched with a mix of respect and caution. Kuro remained focused on his haki training, determined to master his techniques rather than delve into the unpredictability of a devil fruit. "I have my plans with haki," he said, maintaining his steadfast resolve. Usopp, still rattled by the earlier revelations, shook his head vigorously. "I'm not taking a devil fruit," he insisted, feeling a mixture of fear and admiration for Kaya's transformation. "I still need to grow stronger without it." Kaya beamed with excitement as she embraced her newfound powers. Harnessing the energy of lightning, she felt an invigorating spark in her veins. "Luffy, I'd like to treat you all to lunch. Since we still don't have a cook, how about we go to a restaurant nearby called the Barati? They have first-class chefs," she suggested eagerly. Kuro nodded, his memory igniting at the mention of the restaurant. "Yes, I remember that place. It has some great cooks, but the last time we were there, the sous chef was being a nuisance, flirting with you in the presence of your late mother and father," he pointed out, smirking at the memory. Luffy chuckled, finding amusement in their history. "Well, maybe we can recruit a cook if they're that good," he replied, his enthusiasm igniting again. "Let's head there." "All right, let's get going then," Hancock said, a smile on her face. "I could use a good meal after all that training, and it's a chance to see if we find someone who can really handle the kitchen." With a renewed purpose, the crew swiftly readied themselves, excitement radiating as they prepared to set sail toward the Barati. As they sailed toward the restaurant, they couldn't help but think about the possibilities. If they found a capable cook, it would elevate their crew significantly. As the Shadow's Sorrow glided smoothly toward the Barati, the bustling energy of the restaurant barely in sight, the crew's anticipation buzzed in the air. However, their journey was suddenly interrupted as they crossed paths with a marine ship anchored nearby. The commanding officer stood proudly on deck, glaring down at them with an air of authority. "Pirates, surrender to me now and identify yourselves," he commanded, his voice booming across the water. Luffy and Hancock shared a glance before bursting into laughter, the sound loud and carefree. They both knew that the Navy would have to send a fleet just for the two of them. "This guy looks serious," Luffy said, unable to contain his amusement. Before they could revel too long in the fun of it, a girl appeared behind Full Body. Hancock raised an eyebrow, her smile teasing. "Is this your gold digger, or are you paying her by the hour?" The girl looked taken aback, unsure of how to react to Hancock's remark, while Full Body's expression darkened, rage boiling over. "You think this is a joke? Open fire on that pirate ship," he ordered furiously. As the commanding officer yelled at his crew, cannons were readied, and a cannonball was fired toward the Shadow's Sorrow. Time seemed to slow down as the projectile raced through the air, threatening destruction. Luffy, however, wasn't fazed. In a moment of showmanship, he extended one arm, catching the cannonball with ease. "Seriously? That's your best shot?" he laughed, showing off for his crew and shaking his head. With a swift motion, he tossed the cannonball back with all his strength, launching it toward Full Body's ship. The impact was thunderous, the cannonball pierced through the deck before crashing into the hull, causing an explosive rupture. The ship began to sink rapidly, water rushing in as panic enveloped the Marines aboard. "Get to the lifeboats," Full Body shouted, his face pale as he witnessed the chaos unfolding on his ship. The crew scrambled, desperately trying to escape the sinking vessel. Luffy, still laughing, called after them, "Next time, don't mess with us. Maybe you'll think twice about declaring war on pirates." As they entered the Bharati, the lively atmosphere surrounded them, filled with the sounds of clattering dishes and merry chatter. A tall man with bulging arms greeted them with a friendly smile. "Welcome to the Bharati." Luffy, excitement radiating from him, grinned widely. "A table for 10, please." The waiter raised an eyebrow slightly, assessing Luffy and his ragtag crew. "No problem. But I must ask, do you have money?" Luffy rolled his eyes, exasperated at the question. "Of course, we have money. What kind of idiot goes to a restaurant without cash? Now, get us our table." The waiter, slightly taken aback by Luffy's hearty confidence, chuckled and escorted them to a large table in the center of the bustling bar. Once seated, the crew began chatting animatedly, their excitement building as they surveyed the menu and made plans for the day ahead. Luffy was just about to dive into a conversation filled with dreams of adventure when another man approached them. This newcomer had curly eyebrows, blonde hair, black pants, and a blue shirt adorned with a black suit jacket. He came to a halt upon catching sight of Hancock, his eyes widening in admiration. "Oh my goodness! What a privilege it is to have such beauty here!" he exclaimed, kneeling theatrically before her. Luffy's expression shifted from enjoyment to irritation in an instant. He placed a protective hand on Hancock's shoulder. "Hey, waiter, she's my girl." Realizing his mistake, the man quickly rose, a sheepish expression crossing his face. "Oh, is taken, then a true gentleman does not have the right to flirt with her. My name is Sanji, and I'm the sous chef here. Please allow me to make it up to you." "All right, I accept your apology," Luffy said, still feeling somewhat protective but also wanting to avoid a scene. "Just make sure you keep the compliments to a minimum." Sanji nodded, his attention quickly shifting once again. "Of course. I'll make sure your meals are top-notch, but I must say, lovely ladies," his eyes brightened as he turned to Nami, Alvida, and Kaya. "You three are quite beautiful as well." Luffy groaned, realizing Sanji's charm had already taken hold. "Wait, what about our order?" he exclaimed, exasperated. "Have no fear. I'll personally ensure you all receive the best treatment. Good food and good company are what I live by," Sanji declared, his attention shifting fully to flattering the women at the table, oblivious to Luffy's growing irritation. "You've gotta be kidding me," Luffy muttered under his breath as he watched Sanji in action, shamelessly flirting with Nami, Alvida, and Kaya. Hancock couldn't help but laugh at Luffy's obvious frustration. "I think he's just trying to be nice. Let him have his fun," she said, amused by the unexpected turn of events. As Sanji finally finished taking the orders, after much yelling from Luffy, Zoro, Kuro, Usopp and Kobe because at first he only took the girls' orders ignoring them, he assured Luffy and the crew that he would personally prepare their meals. Eagerly awaiting their food, they settled back into their conversations, the lively atmosphere rolling with laughter and chatter. When the dishes arrived, the crew dug in with gusto. Luffy took a bite, his eyes lighting up with delight. "Man, he might be a pervert, but he sure knows how to cook," he exclaimed, excitement bubbling in his voice as he savored the delicious flavors. However, the joyful moment was soon interrupted when the door of the restaurant burst open, letting in a drenched and furious Full Body. He stormed in, his pistol clutched tightly in his hand. "You bastards! You sunk my ship!" he shouted, his voice dripping with fury. Luffy, still with food in his mouth, shrugged nonchalantly. "Well, you started it, you jackass. Now go, or I'll throw you in the ocean myself." Full Body's rage escalated as he pointed his gun straight at Luffy, his eyes filled with anger. But just before he could pull the trigger, Sanji sprang into action, grabbing Full Body's hand firmly. "Hey, no weapons in here, buddy," he said, his tone resolute. Despite Sanji's intervention, Full Body stubbornly seethed, his arrogance fueling his anger. "Let me go, you shit waiter. I'm a Marine, Lieutenant Full Body," he snarled. Sanji, unfazed by the threat, retaliated with quick reflexes. He kicked full body in the face, sending the man tumbling to the ground, shocked and disoriented. You'll be needing a lesson in respect. As full body struggled to regain his footing, Sanji didn't hold back. He delivered another swift kick, this time sending the lieutenant flying through the door. There was a moment of silence before the crew erupted into laughter, relief washing over them as the tension dissipated. Sanji straightened up, turning back to Luffy and the crew with an apologetic smile. "Really sorry about the inconvenience, everyone," he said, a look of sincerity etched on his face. Luffy looked around, still laughing at the display, and turned to Hancock. "I think we just found our cook," he exclaimed, excitement edging into his voice. "Looks like it," Hancock replied, a grin crossing her lips. "I like him already." Just as the laughter from the earlier events began to settle, a figure emerged from the upper floor of the Bharati. He had a tall chef's hat perched atop his head, a large mustache with braids, and a peg leg, an unmistakable presence announcing his arrival. It was the famed head chef of the Bharati, Red Leg Zeph. "Sanji, are you fighting with the guests again, you little eggplant?" Zeph bellowed as he walked over, shaking his head in exasperation. Then, his gaze landed on Luffy and Hancock. Well, Monkey D. Luffy and Boa Hancock, I thought you were still part of red-haired Shanks' crew, he remarked, a mix of surprise and curiosity filling his voice. Both Luffy and Hancock exchanged looks of disbelief at the recognition. "You know us?" Luffy asked, brimming with excitement. Zeph nodded, crossing his arms. "I've heard plenty. You've made quite a name for yourselves on the seas." Hancock smiled gracefully, appreciative of the acknowledgement. The stories of Red Leg Zeph had reached them through Rayleigh and Shanks, legendary tales of his prowess and expertise in the culinary arts. They introduced themselves and their crew, explaining their purpose for visiting the Bharati, to recruit a cook for their new venture. Zeph turned to Sanji, his expression shifting from casual amusement to seriousness. "Well, you can have him, if you want. He's a pain in my neck," he declared without hesitation. Sanji immediately protested, "Wait, what? I'm not going anywhere." His protests echoed through the bar, but Zeph continued unfazed. "You know, Sanji," Zeph retorted, annoyance etched in his voice, "you're the worst cook here. You spend most of your time fighting guests, other cooks, or flirting with the female guests. It's a miracle we haven't lost more customers because of you. Come on, old man. I cook for a living, and I do it well." Sanji shot back, puffing out his chest in defiance, but deep down, he understood Zeph's frustration. Hancock turned to Luffy, catching the excitement that danced in his eyes. "Luffy, do you still want to recruit him?" "Definitely. He's got potential," Luffy replied, enthusiasm bubbling over. He turned to Nami, nudging her playfully. "When we recruit Sanji, we'll be paying Arlong a visit." The next day, the crew of the Shadow's Sorrow remained at the Bharati, with Luffy still trying to convince Sanji to join them. Despite his enthusiastic attempts, Sanji held firm, stubbornly denying every offer that came his way. Hancock, observing the dynamic unfold, turned to Luffy with a knowing smile. "Luffy, maybe you should consider giving it a rest," she suggested, though she knew him well enough to comprehend that once he set his mind to something, no one could talk him out of it. Just then, while they were enjoying breakfast at their table, a commotion was heard. Curious, Luffy decided to listen in on the argument which was between Patty and Sanji. "Sanji, you shouldn't give food to a member of Don Krieg's crew," Patty shouted, his eyes filled with frustration. "Now they're coming here, and we'll all be in trouble." "I don't care," Sanji retorted, clearly irritated. "Every hungry person deserves a meal. I'll feed anyone in need, no matter who they are." His compassion was evident, even as the threat of danger loomed. Luffy stepped closer, intrigued by the unfolding drama. "What's this all about?" he asked, wanting to understand the tension simmering in the air. Patty glanced at him, exasperated. 2 days ago, one of Don Krieg's crew showed up here demanding food. I beat him up and threw him out for not having any money, and now, Don Krieg is coming here personally." The crew exchanged concerned glances, the reality of the situation sinking in. Luffy's eyes glinted with excitement. "Don Krieg? Isn't he one of the notorious pirates of the East Blue?" "Yeah, you could say that," Patty replied grimly. "He's known for being ruthless, and his crew isn't exactly kind either." If he's coming to get retribution, it could be dangerous for everyone here. Luffy's smile widened as he turned to his crew. Get ready, everyone. We're about to have some fun. This could serve as a great field test to see what you've learned. As the galleon drew closer, the crew of the Shadow's Sorrow gained a clearer view of the ship. Luffy and Hancock noted the extensive damage it bore, the sails tattered and the hull partially submerged from some unseen calamity. Using their observation haki, they sensed the crew aboard, weak and fading, desperation evident in their auras. Luffy exchanged glances with Hancock, their wicked smiles reflecting the thrill of knowing who was likely behind this misfortune. Judging from the damages, we can guess who caused this, Luffy said excitedly. And I know he's not far behind. Hancock nodded, her eyes glinting with anticipation. This should be fun. It's been some time since we last saw Dracula Mihawk. But these fools probably have the worst luck. I mean, they've entered the Grand Line and bumped into him of all people. Yeah, and judging by the damage and the fact they had more ships, it seems they disturbed his nap. Luffy chuckled, unable to suppress his excitement at the thought of facing off against the remnants of Don Krieg's crew. As the Shadow Dragon pirates settled back into the bustling Baratie, the atmosphere was filled with anticipation and excitement for their next encounters. Luffy, still riding the high of their victory and newfound freedom, turned to Zoro, a playful glint in his eyes. Zoro, Dracula Mihawk will be here soon. Want to spar with him? It'll show you how much more you need to improve to become the world's greatest swordsman. Zoro's expression changed from playful interest to shock. What? Mihawk is coming here? He stared down at his white katana, feeling the weight of the challenge looming ahead. No, Luffy, I can't challenge him yet. These past few days training with you made me realize I'm no match for him. Luffy's chuckle faded slightly, sensing Zoro's seriousness. Look, I understand, but you'll get stronger. I promise I'll help you find 2 new swords as soon as possible. Zoro nodded, grateful for Luffy's encouragement, but still feeling the pressure of his ambition. He had respect for Mihawk that wasn't easily dismissed. Just then, the door of the Baratie swung open, and 2 men stepped inside. One was a slim-looking man of average height, wearing a striped shirt, striped pants, and a striped bandana. The other was tall and imposing, clad in armor that gleamed ominously under the bar's light. Alvida immediately recognized them and turned to the crew, her eyes sharp. Well, look at that. The tall one in armor is Don Krieg, and the other one is his vice-captain, Jin. Kuro confirmed with a nod, his tone serious as he observed the new arrivals. Looks like they've seen better days. Don Krieg strode weakly into the Baratie, surveying the patrons. Please give me some food. He shouted, his voice weak and pitiful. Patty, the waiter, stepped forward, visibly unimpressed. You either leave now or prepare to be thrown out, Krieg. This is not your territory. He challenged, attempting to stand his ground. As the situation escalated, Sanji appeared from the kitchen, carrying a plate of food. Without hesitation, he approached the 2 intruders, his expression calm but firm. If you're hungry, you're welcome to eat. But you need to understand that this is a place for guests, not for brigands. Don Krieg eyed the food, and as he took a bite, his gruff demeanor softened momentarily. He closed his eyes in bliss. This is delicious, he exclaimed, savoring the flavors. But the moment was short-lived. As he finished the plate, an evil smile crept onto his face. In an instant, he punched Sanji hard in the face, causing the chef to stumble. I'll take this Baratie and have you prepare food for my men, he declared with intent to seize control. Luffy couldn't help but burst into laughter alongside Hancock, finding the situation both humorous and absurd. Well, that was a mistake, he shouted, taking a step forward, the amusement lighting his features. You think you can just walk in here and dictate terms? Luffy, let's not forget our goal, Hancock said, though a smile tugged at her lips as she found Luffy's enthusiasm contagious. As if that would stop me. Luffy replied, grinning. I think it's time to teach this wannabe pirate a lesson about respect. With the atmosphere thick with tension, Don Krieg approached Luffy and the crew, fury radiating from him. How dare you disrespect me? Do you know who I am? He demanded, his voice booming with arrogant bravado. Luffy met his gaze with an unwavering grin. Yeah, I know an idiot who got his ass handed to him in paradise. You're that guy. The entire crew shared a moment of disbelief and shock as Nami chimed in. What do you mean, paradise? How can the Grand Line be called paradise? Simple, Luffy explained, waving a hand dismissively. The first half of the Grand Line is called paradise because, in comparison to the second half, it really is paradise. This revelation left everyone momentarily stunned, the gravity of Luffy's words lingering in the air. Hancock added, and Nami, before we enter the Grand Line, we should get you a log pose. Thanks to the magnetic waves, compasses don't work there. Don Krieg, refueling his anger, snapped back, I don't care. I am Don Krieg. What do you and that bitch of yours think you are? Hearing the derogatory term used against Hancock sent Luffy's anger roaring forth like a wildfire. Nobody insults Hancock. Without hesitation, Luffy rushed at Krieg, landing a powerful punch right in the captain's stomach. The force was so immense that it left a large dent in Krieg's armor, and with a strained gasp, he was sent flying out of the Bharati. The crew stared in shock as he soared through the air, crashing into the shoreline. Is he serious? Kobe whispered, wide-eyed. As Don Krieg struggled to stand, Luffy reappeared in front of him, an intense and unyielding expression on his face, his eyes glowing with a fierce determination. Grabbing Krieg by the neck, he lifted him off the ground, looking down at him with an intensity that sent chills down the spines of his crew. Listen here, you bastard. No one insults my girl, Luffy said, his voice low in furioration. Luffy began to transform into his hybrid dragon mode. His figure grew larger, muscles rippling, wings extending from his back as scales covered his body, creating a terrifying sight that seemed to come straight from the darkest tales of legend. Do you see this? Luffy asked, his voice now a deep, resonant growl. This is what awaits you in the second part of the Grand Line. Just then, the terrified expression on Don Krieg's face turned to pure horror as Luffy tightened his grip around his neck. He could feel the crushing power, the realization dawning on him that he was utterly trapped. You have brought chaos into these waters, Luffy said, his voice low and threatening. Today, that ends. With a swift motion, Luffy snapped Don Krieg's neck, ending the pirate's reign of terror in one decisive action. The shockwaves of his actions rippled throughout the gathered crew as Luffy, in his dragon form, stood tall over the body, holding it as a reminder of the power that came with their choices. With a flick of his wrist, he tossed the body out into the ocean, letting the waves claim the remnants of the once feared captain. Don Krieg is dead, he declared, turning to face the remaining pirates who had witnessed the mayhem. He looked at Krieg's crew, who stood in stunned silence. I'll pay for your food here. Eat up and get out of here. Do you hear me? He commanded. The remaining pirates nodded slowly, fear overtaking their previous bravado. They recognized they had no chance against Luffy and the formidable crew he commanded. As the atmosphere shifted from chaotic confrontation to determined resolution, Luffy reverted back to his human form, letting out a breath he had been holding. Just as the dust began to settle from the confrontation, Luffy focused intently, sensing two powerful presences approaching with his observation haki. A broad smile spread across his face, a thrill coursing through him. They're coming, he declared, a spark of excitement in his eyes. The rest of the crew, including Zoro, Nami, Alvida, Kobe, Kuro, Kaya, and Usopp, exchanged confused glances. Who's coming? Kobe asked, genuinely puzzled. Hancock, sensing the same energy as Luffy, muttered, Dracula Mahawk, while nodding in acknowledgement. And it seems that Jinbei is with him. As the figures grew closer on the horizon, Luffy squinted, eager to get a better look. A small, coffin-shaped boat glided toward them, and Luffy soon recognized the two figures on board. One was a tall man dressed like a Spanish swordsman, wielding a gigantic blade strapped to his back. The other was a blue fishman dressed in a traditional kimono, definitely Jinbei. Luffy turned to his crew, especially focusing on Nami. I think that you and Jinbei should talk, he suggested, sensing her curiosity piquing. Nami nodded, feeling a rush of anticipation as the prospect of meeting such a powerful figure filled her with intrigue. Using Jinbei as an ally could be a game changer for their crew. As they prepared for the arrival of Mihawk and Jinbei, the atmosphere around them shifted, a sense of gravity settling in as they awaited the presence of two of the 7 warlords of the sea. Each member of the crew braced themselves for whatever conversation or confrontation lay ahead. The boat finally reached the dock, and the legendary swordsman and the fishman stepped onto the ship, their imposing figures casting long shadows over the crew. Mahawk's intense gaze swept the gathered pirates, assessing them with a calm demeanor, while Jinbei's warm smile and reserved presence put the crew at ease. Luffy, Boa Hancock, Mahawk greeted, his voice smooth yet authoritative. I see you have gathered a rather interesting crew. I trust you are prepared for the trials ahead. Yes, we're ready, Luffy declared, bursting with confidence. We're about to claim our place in the pirate world. Luffy enthusiastically introduced Dracula, Mahawk and Jinbei to the rest of his crew. The crew stood in awe, their eyes wide as they took in the two legendary figures. When Luffy turned to Jinbei and said, "This is Nami," he felt an odd, heavy silence fall over the group. Nami's cheeks flushed slightly as she cautiously met Jinbei's gaze, the weight of her past with Arlong hanging in the air around them. Understanding the gravity of the moment, Luffy stepped closer to Nami, his expression growing serious. "You two need to talk," he instructed Jinbei, who nodded with a solemn understanding. "I've already received information from Garp about Arlong causing trouble in the East Blue," Jinbei explained, his deep voice calm but steady. "I happened to meet Mahawk by chance during my travels, and I hitched a ride here rather than swim the whole trip. We're ready to confront the issues ahead." Meanwhile, Mahawk's attention was drawn toward Zoro, who stood slightly apart from the rest, visibly nervous under the warlord's intense scrutiny. Zoro felt the familiar tension of being assessed by a master swordsman, his heart pounding in anticipation. Luffy approached Zoro, grinning proudly. "Mahawk, this is Zoro. He wants to challenge you, he has a lot of potential, and I've been training him." "So, Luffy thinks you have what it takes to beat me," Mahawk said, a hint of a smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. Zoro, fighting against his nervousness, squared his shoulders. "Well, it's my goal to become the best," he replied, determination weaving its way into his voice. "But these past few days have made me realize I still have a long way to go." He glanced down at his single katana. "I'm at a disadvantage since Luffy broke two of my swords during training." Mahawk sighed, nodding in agreement. "I understand, but know this, to be the best, you have much to learn. I believe my former student, Luffy, can teach you well." Zoro's eyes widened in surprise at Mahawk's words. "You trained him?" he asked, disbelief etched across his features. "Of course," Mahawk replied with an air of confidence. "Do you think I would let Shanks have all the fun? Luffy possesses not only power but strength of spirit. He can help you grow stronger." Mahawk, turning his attention back to Luffy, couldn't help but smirk slightly. "Well, it seems, Luffy, that you already took care of those weaklings who disturbed my nap. You only killed their idiot captain, though, the rest are too weak to pose a real fight. They'll get some food and be on their way." Luffy shrugged, an easy grin spreading across his face. "I just did what needed to be done," he said with youthful confidence. "Besides, it's not my fault they were so weak." Mahawk, respecting Luffy's spirit, suddenly proposed, "Since you've already killed my prey, how about a little sparring? It's been some time since we fought." "Sure, I'd love to," Luffy replied eagerly, excitement surging at the prospect of battling the legendary swordsman. He then turned to Zeph, who had been observing the exchange from the deck of the Bharati. "Hey, Zeph, can we fight here?" Zeph hesitated for a moment, his eyes narrowing at the thought of potential chaos in his restaurant. However, he eventually nodded. "Fine, but make sure to keep the damage to a minimum." He ordered his staff to roll out the sides of the Bharati, creating a designated space for their sparring match. Zeph turned to Luffy, his tone shifting to seriousness. "You're paying for any damages you cause to my restaurant, understood?" "Got it," Luffy replied with a nod, determination sparkling in his eyes. "Sanji, watch this. Maybe this will change your mind about joining us," Luffy quipped back, the excitement radiating from him like a beacon. However, Sanji, his expression resolute, shot back, "I already told you, I'm not interested in joining a crew." All right, Luffy conceded good-naturedly, pulling a serious expression as he prepared himself. With that, Mahawk moved to the center, his formidable black sword, Yuru, drawn and gleaming ominously in the sunlight. "Are you ready, Luffy?" Mahawk asked, his gaze steady and focused, quietly assessing the young pirate before him. "Absolutely," Luffy responded, determination flooding his voice. He transformed into his hybrid dragon mode, muscles rippling beneath his scales as he towered at an imposing height of 4 meters. He drew Shadow Slicer and Day Slicer, covering them with a mix of armament hockey and his shadow powers. Okay, Mihawk, let's give them a show, Luffy declared, excitement pulsing through him as he prepared to charge. The crowd, consisting of the crew and Baratie patrons, watched in awe as the two formidable combatants readied themselves for a clash that would surely be legendary. The tension escalated as Luffy launched himself into the air, propelling forward with his powerful wings, aiming directly at Mihawk. When their blades clashed, a shockwave erupted that sent ripples through the air, a reminder of the mastery and strength each wielded. It was a sight that left Luffy's crew in complete awe. Zoro watched intently, his eyes wide as he took in the extraordinary duel before him. So, this is Luffy's true power? He asked Hancock, eager for confirmation of what he was witnessing. Hancock smiled, her confidence unwavering. Oh, this is nothing. They're just having fun, she replied, making Zoro's amazement grow even more profound. Nami, Usopp, Kaya, Alvida, Kobe, Kuro, and even Richie the Lion stood stunned, trying to comprehend just how powerful their captain was. The clash between Luffy and Mihawk was beyond anything they had seen, an exhibition of skill and mastery. Returning to the fight, Luffy grinned at Mihawk mid-battle. Man, you don't hold back, do you? Mihawk met Luffy's gaze with a calm, amused expression. Neither do you, Luffy. But the warm-up is over, it's time to get serious, don't you think? Luffy's smile widened. I couldn't agree more. With determination, Luffy put Day Slicer back into its hilt, focusing his attention on his shadow abilities. Raising his left arm, he began to gather his shadow powers, the air around him thickening with energy. Take this, Shadow Spear, he shouted, launching a dark wave of shadowy energy toward Mihawk. Mihawk's eyes narrowed as he swiftly adjusted his stance, cutting through the dark wave with a practiced ease. But before he could counter, he took advantage of Luffy's momentary distraction and delivered a powerful strike with his sword, cutting into Luffy's ribs. Luffy stumbled back, momentarily surprised, but he quickly recovered, grabbing his wound and looking up at Mihawk. Got you, he exclaimed, a grin breaking through the pain. Everyone's eyes widened in disbelief as they saw Mihawk had suffered a cut on his face, a small but significant mark of achievement due to Luffy's relentless spirit. That was unexpected, Zoro remarked, his excitement mixing with admiration for Luffy's tenacity. Despite the pain from his injury, Luffy laughed, invigorated by the challenge. I'll take more than a scratch to back down. Mihawk straightened, impressed by Luffy's resilience. You certainly have spirit, Luffy. But you'll need to focus and train harder if you wish to grow even more. With the sparring session between Luffy and Mihawk drawing to a close, the atmosphere remained charged with energy. Luffy, although banged up and sporting a few cuts and bruises, was still in high spirits, grinning widely as he celebrated the challenge he had just faced. Zoro stood nearby, filled with newfound motivation. Watching Luffy's relentless spirit only fueled his determination as he turned to Mihawk, his expression fierce and resolute. Mihawk, Zoro declared, a fire ignited within him. The next time we meet, we will fight. I will grow stronger and claim your title as the world's greatest swordsman. Mihawk, intrigued by Zoro's unwavering confidence, smiled, clearly impressed by the ambitious swordsman. Good. I look forward to it. Tell me your full name, so I can remember it. My name is Roronoa Zoro, he replied, steeling in his voice. And I will beat you and claim your title. I like to see you try, Mihawk said, the amusement and challenge merging together in his expression. Next time we meet, I expect a good fight. With that, Mihawk turned to Luffy, Hancock, and Jinbei, preparing to depart. I've had my fun for the day. I will be leaving. He boarded his small coffin-shaped boat, setting off into the horizon, leaving the crew with a mix of respect and anticipation for their future encounters. As Mihawk sailed away, Jinbei stepped forward to address Nami, who was still processing everything that had taken place. All right, Nami, he said in his deep, soothing voice. Now you have my attention. Tell me everything. As the Shadow Dragon pirates and Jinbei crossed the threshold into the Baratie, the vibrant atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. The sound of sizzling pans and clinking glasses filled the air as patrons savored their meals. Sanji, however, was still grappling with the incredible display of power he had witnessed during Luffy's spar with Mihawk. I can't believe this. So much power and ambition, Sanji muttered to himself, still in awe of Luffy's abilities. Zeph, noticing his restless state, approached Sanji with a knowing look. "See, little eggplant, this is what true power and true ambition are. And I want you to have it." Sanji turned to Zeph, his mentor and father figure, shaking his head. "Oh no, old man. I am not going anywhere. My place is here." Zeph's expression turned stern as he kicked Sanji in the stomach with his peg leg, a move that left Sanji gasping. "Now you listen to me," Zeph said firmly. "I know you think you owe me your life, but you are wasting your time here. You're young, and don't forget that we both have dreams, dreams that only you can achieve." Sanji's mind drifted back to his vision of the All Blue, the legendary ocean where all the fish from every sea came together. It was a dream he had cherished deeply. I remember," he muttered, feeling the weight of his mentor's words. Zeph softened a bit, placing a hand on Sanji's shoulder. "Yes, and you should join Luffy and achieve it. Don't spend your best years here in this place. Consider this payback for me saving your life that time." Sanji paused, memories flooding back of that fateful day when Zeph had sacrificed his leg to save him from drowning. The debt he felt was layered, yet the longing for his own dreams called out to him even louder now. "Okay, old man, I will do it, for both of us," Sanji finally agreed, nodding with newfound determination. With a sense of resolution washing over him, Sanji returned to the Baraties' main area. "Luffy, I accept your offer," he declared, standing confidently in front of the young captain. Luffy's face broke into a wide grin, pure delight radiating from him. "Welcome to the Shadow Dragon Pirates, Sanji. You're our head chef now." With Sanji officially joining the crew, the atmosphere on the Shadow's Sorrow was charged with excitement. Luffy, Hancock, and the rest of the crew were invigorated by their growing family dynamic, their spirits high as they discussed their next steps. But amid the camaraderie, Jinbei stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "Listen to me, all of you, especially you, Nami." The crew exchanged puzzled looks, their curiosity piqued. "I would like to apologize for a grave mistake," Jinbei continued, a solemnity in his expression. "You see, the one who let Arlong and his crew into the East Blue was me." The revelation struck like a thunderbolt, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Nami's heart dropped, and anger flared within her. "Why did you let that monster come here? Don't you know what he has done to me?" she demanded, tears welling in her eyes. Jinbei's expression was filled with shame and sorrow. "I didn't know the extent of the threat he posed. Tell me, Nami, what has he done?" he urged gently. With difficulty, Nami began to recount her painful past, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Arlong came to my village and killed my mother right in front of me and my sister," she cried, lifting her sleeve to reveal the mark on her arm, a symbol of the torment she had endured as his captive. "After he shot my mother, he forced me to draw sea maps for him, and he made me a deal that if I could bring him 100 million belly, I could buy my village back. But I know he won't keep his word." Hearing her tragic story, Jinbei's eyes widened with horror and sadness. "I'm so sorry, Nami. I didn't know the pain your village faced." Luffy, always the voice of reason, interrupted gently. "Nami, don't blame Jinbei for Arlong's crimes. He didn't know." Nami turned to Jinbei, tears glistening in her eyes. "Jinbei, when we beat Arlong, I want you to take him to Impel Down. I don't want to kill him, I believe that making him rot in that prison is punishment enough." Jinbei, respecting her wishes, nodded earnestly. "I promise I will ensure that he faces justice. You have my word, Nami." At that moment, Luffy spoke again, determined to support her. "That's right, Jinbei. Nami can take him down using her powers. With the training she's gone through with Hancock, she can handle him." "Of course," Jinbei affirmed, meeting Luffy's gaze. "And I will be there to assist when the time comes." Nami felt a mix of relief and gratitude wash over her. "Thank you, Jinbei. It means a lot to me," she said, her voice steadying as the support of her friends enveloped her. That is it for this chapter. In the next chapter, the Shadow Dragon pirates will go to Nami's home island to confront Arlong, but they will also discover something else that Luffy had suspected was going on and the reason he called his grandfather Vice Admiral Garp and told him to come to East Blue. 2 days later, as the Shadow Dragon pirates set sail toward Kokoyashi village, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation and tension. Luffy stood confidently at the helm, a smile plastered on his face, but Nami's nerves were clearly getting the best of her. "Are you sure this will work?" Nami asked, glancing anxiously at the horizon. Of course it will work. Luffy assured her, his enthusiasm infectious. Jinbei told us he would come to Kokoyashi village once my grandpa arrives, and they'll meet us there. Hancock added, her voice steady, have you ever wondered how Arlong, a Grand Line veteran, managed to remain unnoticed here in the East Blue? It's obvious, he's paying off the Marines. Yeah, and don't worry. Sanji chimed in, hard eyes glimmering as he offered a reassuring presence. I'll protect you. Just don't panic. Luffy watched the exchange, a smirk creeping onto his face. Man, he really is a pervert, he thought to himself. I should bring him to Okama Island one day. Although, that place gives me the creeps. As they continued their journey, the feeling of excitement mixed with determination swirled around them. Finally, as the ship approached Kokoyashi village, Nami's heart raced. Something felt off. They docked, but there's a marine ship there. Kobe pointed out, his gaze locking onto the vessel. Kuro added, narrowing his eyes at the sight. And by the look of it, they're heading in that direction. Nami's panic escalated at the realization. My house is in that direction. Richie, come here, she called out, swiftly mounting the lion as fear surged through her veins. Wait, Nami. Luffy shouted as he noticed her urgency, but she had already taken off toward her home with Richie galloping beneath her. The rest of the crew exchanged glances, exchanging both determination and concern. We can't let her go alone. Hancock urged, and without hesitation, they followed Nami, ready to support her in whatever awaited them. Nami held onto Richie tightly as he galloped toward her home, her heart racing with fear and urgency. The wind whipped through her hair, a whirlwind of emotions flooding her mind. Nojiko. No, she thought, the dread settling in her chest. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out, making her blood run cold. No, she gasped, panic surging as she urged Richie to speed up. As they approached her house, Nami's worst fears were confirmed. There stood a group of Marines blocking the way, and one officer, who looked like a rat, was aiming a smoking gun at her sister, Nojiko. Blood trickled from Nojiko's shoulder where she was holding it, her expression matching Nami's horror. So tell me where the money is, or I'll kill you and dig up this tangerine grove and find it myself. The officer snarled, reveling in his power. Just then, from the depths of the forest, a large lion leapt forward, startling the Marines. But to their surprise, a woman was riding him, commanding his presence. Is that you, Nami? Nojiko cried out, relief washing over her at the sight of her sister. Nami jumped off Richie without a second thought, rushing towards her sister and assessing her wound. Nojiko. What happened? She asked, worry flooding her tone. I couldn't let them take the grove, Nojiko stammered, eyes wide with fear. I was trying to protect it in. The rat-like officer, Captain Nezumi, regained his composure, glaring at the gathering scene. I am Captain Nezumi, and I demand you hand over the money you supposedly stole. He barked, trying to assert his authority. Nami felt her anger boil over, her heart racing at the thought of her sister getting hurt. You won't get away with this, she shouted as she transformed into her hybrid panther form. The sleek, powerful figure emerged, radiating confidence and ferocity, leaves rustling in the air as she shifted. The transformation left Nezumi and his men frozen in shock. What the? He gasped, fear creeping into his expression. Richie, dinner. Get them. Nami commanded her lion, who sprang into action, eyes fierce and protective. As Richie charged toward the Marines, he let out a powerful roar that echoed through the grove, sending shivers down their spines. The tension in the air thickened as Captain Nezumi shouted his orders, urging his men to take aim. Just as they were about to fire, a flash of lightning exploded overhead, crashing down and igniting chaos among the Marines. They screamed as they were fried to a crisp, panic erupting in the ranks. Nami watched in awe, momentarily stunned before she turned to see her crew. Hancock smiled at Kaya, who stood triumphant. Nice one, Kaya, but don't you think that's a bit overkill? Hancock teased. Kaya, a little shocked at her own power, shrugged, sorry. This was my first time testing them. As the smoke settled and the panic grew, Captain Nezumi attempted to flee, his cowardice taking hold. But before he could escape, Kobe sprang into action. Using his gum-gum powers, he stretched his arm and captured Nezumi, yanking him back toward the crew. Gotcha. Kobe shouted triumphantly, swiftly tossing Nezumi right beside Luffy, who stood ready. Nezumi's eyes widened as he faced Luffy, realizing the danger he was in. Monkey D. Luffy. Please don't kill me, he stammered, fear clouding his features. Luffy, unfazed, gripped him by the neck, a menacing glare on his face. Listen here, rat boy. Why are you here? Tell me now. Nezumi, trembling under Luffy's grip, blurted out the truth. Arlong. He told me that you have over 70 million bellies stashed here and that he can't allow you to leave. You're too valuable to him. Nami felt a rush of vindication at Nezumi's words. Everything she had feared was now confirmed. Arlong never intended to free her, he saw her as an asset to exploit. So that was his game, Nami said, anger boiling up inside her. He thinks he can control me. Luffy turned to Nami, his expression softening. Nami, it's time to confront him. We're going to Arlong Park to end this once and for all. Nami's determination solidified as she nodded, her resolve unyielding. I won't let him take my life from me again. I want my freedom. And we'll back you up. Luffy added, his enthusiasm infectious. None of us are going to let you face this alone. Nezumi, still caught in Luffy's grip, felt a flicker of despair. You can't do this. You'll regret it, he protested weakly. As the Shadow Dragon pirates approached Arlong Park, the atmosphere shifted palpably. In front of the open gates stood a group of villagers, their faces marked with fear and desperation, eyes filled with a mix of hope and dread as they recognized Nami among the newcomers. Nami. One of the villagers called out, relief etched into their features as they saw her rushing forward. But panic soon seized her as she pushed past the villagers and took in the scene. There, standing menacingly, was Arlong, holding her friend and father figure, Genso, tightly at his side. Arlong. Nami yelled, her voice filled with fury. What are you doing? Arlong's laughter boomed across the courtyard, filling the air with malice. Well, if it isn't our little traitor. These fools tried to rebel, thinking mere humans can defeat fishmen. What a joke. The sound of his laughter echoed, joined by the jeers of his crew, their confidence overflowing. Nami's anger flared. I know everything, Arlong. I'm here to make a deal with you. Arlong raised an eyebrow, the tone of her voice making him curious. Oh really? What clever little plan do you have in mind, Nami? You and I, Arlong, a battle to the death. The winner takes all, she challenged, her voice steady despite the gravity of her words. The crew of fishmen erupted in laughter, disbelief coloring their expressions as they mocked Nami's audacity. Are you serious? Arlong replied, amusement evident in his tone. Fine. But first, I will kill this traitor. As the fishmen charged at the villagers, eager to unleash chaos, there was a sudden uproar of panic. From above, a shadow loomed, and two formidable figures descended, blocking the path on either side of the villager in form and Hancock in her Gorgon form. The sight of the black dragon and the terrifying woman sent chills down the spines of Arlong's crew, eliciting terrified screams as they realized who they were up against. Okay, enough of that. Luffy declared, his voice deep and commanding. Nami challenged you, Arlong, and for the record, she's on my crew now. With fierce determination, Hancock stepped forward, her powerful presence radiating authority. We won't interfere in your fight, but if you pull a stunt like that again, I will rip you apart. Is that clear? For the first time, Arlong felt a shiver of fear, sweat beading on his forehead as he stared at Luffy and Hancock. You can't be serious. You're just humans, he stammered, realizing the depth of the challenge before him. With his bravado faltering, Arlong took a step back, reassessing the situation. He had never encountered such formidable opponents, and the sense of danger around him felt all too real. Nami, feeling the support of her crew behind her, stepped forward once more. This ends today, Arlong. You can't keep terrorizing my village and my friends. Arlong stood tall, staring down Nami with a cocky smile. Okay, I accept your challenge, he said, a wicked glint in his eye. But it's only me and you. Luffy nodded decisively and turned to Nami. Remember what you learned. You can do this. Nami took a deep breath, steeling herself as she faced the man who had caused her so much pain. She fixed her eyes on Arlong, who taunted her with an aggravating air. Well, my little cat, let's finish this. It's a shame I have to kill you, but I don't really care. With that, Arlong lunged forward, his speed deceptive for someone of his size. But just as he charged at her, Nami transformed into her full panther form. In a swift motion, she became a sleek, powerful black panther, her muscles coiling with energy. The transformation distracted Arlong for just a moment, and Nami seized the opportunity. She swiped her claws, connecting with Arlong's face in a quick, deadly arc. "Triple A, you bitch!" Arlong screamed, blood running down his face where she had scratched him. The pain ignited his fury. "What are you?" Nami stood poised, going into her hybrid mode, her voice steady as she replied, "I have eaten a devil fruit, the cat fruit, model, Black Panther. And I will use it to make sushi out of you." Injured and enraged, Arlong went into a more feral version of himself, his demeanor darkening as he scowled. "So what? A mere human like yourself can't kill me, a fishman." As Arlong charged at Nami once again, she prepared herself. Remembering Luffy's and Hancock's teachings, she activated her observation haki. In a flash, Nami felt her senses heightening, the world around her sharpening as she began to read Arlong's movements. He swung a punch toward her with incredible force, but Nami dodged effortlessly, weaving away from his attacks as if they were mere shadows passing by. "This is the monster I feared for so long," she thought, determination coursing through her veins. "His punches may be powerful, but he's predictable." With each blow he missed, Nami found her rhythm. She spotted an opening. Suddenly, she leapt forward, her claws poised to strike. With a fierce slash, she sliced across Arlong's chest, leaving a deep wound that echoed her resolve. Arlong stumbled back, pain flashing through his eyes, fury bubbling to the surface. "Damn you, cat! I will make you pay for this!" he roared, glaring at her with a ferocity that could intimidate most. "But this time, you'll be the one paying." Nami shot back, feeling her newfound strength emboldening her. "I won't let you harm anyone else ever again." Frustrated and desperate, Arlong felt his temper boiling over as he struggled to land a hit on Nami. "How can you, a Grand Line pirate, find yourself reduced to this? It's no wonder Jinbei sent you running to the East Blue." Nami spoke. Having had enough, Arlong drew his arm back and punched with all his might through a wall in Arlong Park, pulling out his signature weapon, a saw blade named Kiribaki. The sight of it was imposing, and Nami knew at that moment things had gotten serious. Arlong only used this weapon when he wanted to destroy everything around him. With fury in his eyes, Arlong charged at Nami, swinging the saw blade aiming to finish her off. Nami ducked just in time, avoiding the deadly arc of the blade. But Arlong was quick, catching her by the waist with his free hand and slamming her to the ground with a bone-jarring impact. "You're dead, Nami," he yelled, gripping her neck tightly as he lifted her off the ground, his rage pouring out in every word. But rather than succumb to fear, Nami's instincts kicked in. With both hands, she grabbed hold of Arlong's arm, sinking her claws into his skin. "Got you," she shouted through gritted teeth, determined to turn the tables on her captor. With a roar of pain, Arlong instinctively released her neck, his anger rising as he tried to shake her off. But Nami wouldn't relent. She pressed forward, using her speed and agility to rush toward the vulnerable area around his gills. Without a second thought, she bit down hard, sinking her teeth into the flesh with all her might. Arlong screamed in agony, the shock of her attack coursing through him. Despite his struggles to shake her off, the more he fought, the deeper her grip became. With each movement, Nami felt stronger and more determined, her instinct to fight and survive driving her forward. Her earlier fears dissipated, replaced by an empowering rage fueled by the need to protect herself and her village. With a forceful rip, Nami managed to tear a chunk of flesh from Arlong's gills, a brutal display of her newfound strength and determination. The blood splattered as Arlong staggered backward, trying to comprehend what had just happened. "You little," he growled, blood trickling down his neck. As Arlong staggered, weakened and losing blood rapidly from Nami's fierce attack, it became evident that he was struggling to stay on his feet. Nami, sensing victory within her grasp, noticed the massive saw blade lying nearby, the weapon that had once instilled fear in her village. With a newfound determination, she picked it up, the weight feeling surprisingly empowering in her hands. Approaching Arlong, she steadied her breath and spoke firmly. "Surrender, Arlong, and you will live." Her voice held a blend of resolve and compassion, understanding that this was a defining moment. Arlong, despite his battered state, smirked coldly. "Really, Nami? You're just as pathetic as your mother when I shot her," he taunted, a last-ditch attempt to provoke her. Hearing his cruel words ignited an inferno of rage within Nami. Everything she had suffered, all the pain, flooded back with the memories of her mother's tragedy. "You son of a," she yelled, swinging the massive blade with all her might. In one swift, decisive movement, she decapitated Arlong, leaving his body toppling and lifeless to the ground. The rush of adrenaline faded, and as the reality of what she had done settled in, Nami fell to her knees, the weight of her emotions crashing over her like waves. Hancock rushed to her side, offering comfort. "It's okay, Nami. You did what you needed to do. You've reclaimed your life, and your freedom." Amidst the feelings swirling within her, Luffy came over, offering his support. "Don't worry. I'm sure Jinbei will understand what you had to do. You're strong." As the reality of their situation began to settle in, Luffy addressed the remaining captured fishmen, whose expressions reflected surrender and fear. "You are now prisoners. Jinbei will be here soon. If you do anything stupid, you'll end up like Arlong." The fishmen pirates exchanged glances before nodding in compliance, knowing the absolute power of Luffy and Hancock. Meanwhile, Zoro was standing with Kuro guarding Nezumi, still tied up and recovering from the earlier encounter. Luffy approached him, now freed from the earlier tension and ready to press forward with their plans. "We're Goiboy. I have some business there, and I know exactly what I'll find," he stated firmly. As Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, Kaya and Kuro made their way towards the marine base, they donned the discarded uniforms of the Marines, garments that had belonged to the very soldiers Kaya had fried with her thunder powers. The sight of the uniforms still fresh with the remnants of battle filled the group with confidence and excitement. Meanwhile, Hancock, Nami, Alvida, Kobe, Salome, and Richie remained behind at Kokoyashi village. On the ship, just before they arrived at the base, a frightened Nezumi, a rat-like marine officer notorious for his cowardice, found himself cornered by Luffy and the crew. "Let me go. I will pay you. I can make it worth your while," he squeaked, his eyes darting with fear. Luffy grinned, a mischievous gleam in his eye. "Sorry, rat boy, but you're going to lead us into your base, and I'm going to rob it blind and free the slaves you have for Joker." Nezumi's heart raced, panic setting in as he stammered, "Who told you I was working for Joker?" Luffy's smile widened into an evil grin. "You just did, you idiot." The revelation hung in the air, and the tension escalated. Nezumi, realizing his plight, reluctantly agreed, knowing he had no chance of escape. The crew gathered around him, their expressions a mix of determination and excitement. They were ready to embark on a high-stakes mission, fueled by the promise of freedom for those oppressed within the marine base. With Zoro and Sanji flanking Luffy, the crew made their way through the dense foliage, arriving at the secluded marine base undetected. The imposing walls loomed ahead, but with Nezumi guiding them through hidden entrances, they managed to slip inside. Once inside, Luffy's heart raced with adrenaline. "Remember, our goal is to free the slaves and gather whatever treasures we can find," he whispered to his crew. Each member nodded, steeling themselves for the challenges they would face. As they navigated the dark corridors, Luffy felt the energy of his dragon powers surging, ready to unleash darkness upon any enemy that dared to confront them. As they navigated through the marine base, Luffy, Kaya, and Usopp split off from Zoro, Sanji, and Kuro, who were taking Nezumi to lead them to the prison cells. "Zoro, Sanji, Kuro, take Rat Boy here. Let him guide you to the cells. Me, Kaya, and Usopp will check out the treasure room and see what kind of loot these Marines have," Luffy directed. With a swift nod of agreement, they separated, moving swiftly through the dim corridors. Luffy's heart raced with excitement and anticipation. He could almost feel the treasure calling to him. As they approached the treasure room, a large steel door stood before them, heavily guarded by 2 alert Marines. Each guard appeared determined, but Luffy's confidence was unwavering. "Is this the treasure room?" Luffy called out, swaggering toward the guards. The Marine nodded, a slight sneer on his face. "Yes, it is." A wicked smile stretched across Luffy's face. "Kaya, do your thing." Kaya nodded, some the power of her Guro Guro no Mi fruit. Lightning crackled around her fingertips, and with a swift motion, she unleashed an electric surge that overwhelmed the guards. They convulsed for a moment before collapsing, incapacitated and twitching on the floor. Nice job, Usopp exclaimed, eyes wide with excitement. Luffy quickly switched to his hybrid dragon form, a seamless blend of human and dragon traits. With a growl and a surge of strength, he ripped the steel door open, the metal groaning in protest but yielding to his power. As they stepped inside, the sight took their breath away. Piles of gold coins, gleaming jewels, and various treasures filled the room, illuminated by flickering torchlight. The air was thick with the scent of wealth. Luffy couldn't help but beam. We hit the jackpot. Without wasting any time, Luffy summoned a dark shadow portal, and as the portal consumed the treasure, gems and gold swirled around them, disappearing into the void. Good. We're done here. Luffy turned to Usopp. You take point and use your slingshot to carve a clean path if we encounter any marines. I bet when I yanked that door, it triggered some sort of alarm. Usopp nodded enthusiastically, ready to prove himself. I'm on it, Captain. Luffy quickly thought, I have to get Usopp a rifle as soon as possible. He's going to need it for what's coming. Then he turned to Kaya, a determined glint in his eyes. Let's go. As Luffy, Kaya, and Usopp made their way to the holding cells, they stepped over the fallen bodies of marines, cut down by Zoro's swords and Kuro's claws and beaten into submission by Sanji's swift kicks. The air was thick with the aftermath of their battle, and the sheer intensity of their assault had left the guards barely worth their time. Kuro stood with Zoro, surveying the grim scene. This is all the prisoners we could find? He asked, noting the rough shape of the 20 or so captives. Luffy felt a wave of anger swell in his chest at the sight. These were innocent lives Nezumi and his men had captured for Joker to sell as slaves. Yes, Kuro confirmed, and the guards didn't put up much of a fight. Luffy nodded, evaluating their situation. But where's Sanji? He asked, scanning the room. Zoro nodded toward a corner, where Sanji was caught in an unexpected situation. He's comforting that girl over there. Curiosity piqued, Luffy approached, only to find the scene unfolding in front of him was much more than he anticipated. There stood Sanji, arms wrapped protectively around a girl with long brown hair, gently whispering words of encouragement. As Luffy drew closer, the concern shifted into shock as he recognized her face. Pudding, is that you? Luffy exclaimed, his eyes widening. Sanji's face paled at Luffy's revelation, a mixture of embarrassment and surprise flashing in his eyes. Oh, shit, he muttered. Pudding, initially relieved by Sanji's support, turned her gaze to Luffy with panic in her voice. Luffy, is that you? Her wide eyes sparkled, a mix of hope and apprehension filling the air. Luffy stepped closer, the intense emotions swirling around them. What are you doing here, Pudding? Are you alright? Sanji interjected, trying to maintain a sense of confidence. Don't worry, Pudding-chan. Nobody will think you're a freak. We're here to rescue you all. Zoro crossed his arms, eyeing the prisoners. We need to get them out of here. There's no time to waste. Pudding released Sanji, stepping forward. I was captured by Nezumi's men. They planned to sell me. But, how did you all find me? As the group made their way to the marine ship, Luffy and his crew, the Shadow Dragon pirates, swiftly breezed through the desperate ranks of marines. With their comrades and the freed prisoners in tow, they boarded the ship without hesitation. Nezumi, tightly bound, was unceremoniously tossed onto the deck alongside the captives, his fearful demeanor contrasting sharply with the rising morale of the prisoners. With a fierce determination, Luffy transformed into his full dragon form, a massive, menacing black dragon, wings powerful enough to cause the air around him to tremble. He took off into the sky, the shadows swirling around him, infusing him with dark energy. As he soared above the marine base, he gathered the strength within him, unleashing his shadow wave attack. A colossal wave of darkness surged down from him, obliterating the base in a spectacular explosion that lit up the sky. The shockwave shook the very foundations of the remnants of the marine stronghold. Once the destruction was complete, he returned to the ship and reverted back to his human form, exhilarated by the battle as well as the victory. Luffy approached Pudding, who was standing close to Sanji, her face a mix of relief and uncertainty. Okay, Pudding, what are you doing here? Did Big Mom send you here to spy on me and Hancock? He asked, half jokingly, but his tone carried an underlying seriousness. Sanji, overhearing, raised his eyebrows in confusion. Why are you so uptight around Pudding? She's just a girl. Luffy turned her discomfort. Pudding, should I tell him or will you? Pudding sighed, her expression softening as she prepared to reveal her secrets. Sanji, my name is Charlotte Pudding. My mom is Charlotte Linlin, or you may know her as the Yonko Big Mom. She glanced at Luffy, the weight of her revelation sinking in. And Luffy knows me because of a little incident that happened while he and Hancock were on Shanks' ship. Luffy nodded, recalling the conflict. Yes, apparently Pudding's brother Cracker was madly in love with Hancock, and Big Mom tried to force Hancock to marry him. But it didn't go as she planned. Shanks told her to piss off and that I was Hancock's boyfriend. Cracker didn't take it well. He tried to kidnap Hancock, but she used her powers to turn into her Gorgon form and defeated him in the process. Unrevealed tensions hung thick in the air, and Luffy continued, as a result, Big Mom vowed to kill Hancock and me as revenge. Sanji's eyes widened, shock and concern flooding over him. That's intense, Pudding. You're caught in a dangerous game. Yes, and I'm sorry for putting you all at risk, Pudding admitted, biting her lip. As they sailed away from the wreckage of the marine base, Luffy turned to Pudding, a curious look in his eyes. So, what are you really doing here? Pudding took a deep breath, her expression tinged with vulnerability. Well, I ran away from Mama. I couldn't take it anymore. After Lola left, some of my brothers and sisters began to think the same way. Katakuri and Brûlé helped me escape. Luffy nodded, impressed by her courage. That's brave of you, but what's your plan? Turning her gaze to a nearby mirror, Pudding asked, I want to contact Brûlé. Sanji raised an eyebrow, surprised. You're going to contact them. Are you okay with that? Luffy smiled, a flicker of amusement in his voice. Yeah, just tell Katakuri we still need to finish our fight. Despite him being a member of that old hag's crew, I have nothing but respect for him. Luffy watched as Pudding moved to the mirror, confidence radiating from her as she placed her hands on its frame. Big sis, it's me, Pudding. Hey, are you there? Suddenly, a voice echoed back through the mirror. Pudding, it's you. Where are you? Brûlé, Pudding exclaimed, her face lighting up with joy. I'm in the East Blue. I was captured by slavers, and you wouldn't believe who rescued me. Brûlé sounded intrigued but puzzled. Who was it? Pudding stepped aside, revealing Luffy as he leaned closer to the mirror. Luffy, you rescued Pudding. Brûlé's voice shifted from confusion to awe, realizing who had stepped in to save her sister. Luffy gave a casual grin. Yeah, Brûlé, it's me. And don't worry, Pudding is safe with us. Brûlé sighed in relief, a mixture of gratitude and concern in her tone. Thanks, Luffy. And please, tell Hancock we are sorry for that little stunt. Pudding didn't mean to cause any trouble. Luffy waved a hand dismissively. No worries. I'll tell her the whole situation. I'll make sure Hancock doesn't tear Pudding to shreds. Okay, just keep her safe, alright. Brûlé replied, her tone serious. There was a protective instinct in her voice, one that resonated deeply with Pudding. I promise, Luffy assured her, feeling a new weight of responsibility settle in as he turned from the mirror. As the ship docked at Kokoyashi village, the crew unloaded the freed prisoners, relief washing over them as they stepped onto familiar ground. Luffy, filled with excitement, was eager to see Hancock again. But as soon as she spotted them, her joy quickly turned to fury. Luffy! Hancock shouted, striding toward the dock with purpose, her expression fierce. Her eyes zeroed in on Pudding, who stood nervously beside Sanji. You! Hancock pointed at Pudding, her voice filled with accusation. Whoa, Hancock! Calm down! Luffy exclaimed, trying to diffuse the tension. He could sense the fury radiating from Hancock as she transformed into her Gorgon form, an intimidating display accompanied by the shimmer of her armament haki. You hypnotized me and almost made me marry that freak of your brother. She spat, her voice laced with anger. Pudding, cornered and feeling the heat of the moment, instinctively moved closer to Sanji, clutching onto him in fear. I'm sorry. I only did what Mama and Cracker told me to do. She pleaded, her voice trembling. Seeing a glaring Hancock with an arrow drawn and aimed directly at Pudding startled Sanji, who braced himself defensively. Just hold on, Hancock. We can talk about this. Luffy intervened, shifting into his hybrid form, letting his dragon side appear to dominate the scene. Hancock, stop. She's not with that old hag anymore. He insisted, raising his hands to calm the situation. Hancock hesitated, her eyes darting between Luffy and Pudding, confusion replacing rage. She's not. Let me explain, Luffy urged, motioning for Hancock to come down from her tense stance. She hesitated, but eventually she come down, her Gorgon form fading away. Luffy relayed the story that had transpired, how Pudding had escaped from Big Mom's control with the help of Katakuri and Brûlé, abandoning her past in a bid for her freedom. Hancock's expression slowly shifted from anger to understanding. Finally, her irritation morphed into a comical blush as she simmered down. "Oh, Luffy, I'm so sorry for my outburst," she apologized, rubbing the back of her neck sheepishly. Well, you know how I can be." Luffy chuckled, appreciating the quick recovery. "It's all right, Hancock. Everyone has their moments." "Oh, Luffy," Hancock interrupted, her eyes sparkling mischievously. "Your grandpa and Jinbei are here." Luffy's eyes widened with joy. "Really? Awesome. Zoro, bring Rat Boy here." As they entered Kokoyashi village, the atmosphere was filled with a sense of relief and celebration, yet also tension from the newly freed prisoners. Nami was deep in conversation with Jinbei, telling him how Arlong lost his life to her. Meanwhile, Garp stood slightly to the side, observing the scene with his usual no-nonsense expression, though a hint of amusement danced in his eyes. Just then, Zoro nonchalantly shoved Nezumi to Garp's feet. The bound marine officer looked up, panic reflected in his eyes as he realized he was face to face with the legendary Garp the Fist. "Vice Admiral, help me. These pirates kidnapped me," he squeaked, his voice rising in urgency. "Shut up," Garp replied, dismissing Nezumi's pleas with contempt. "I know exactly what you're doing, Nezumi. Corruption and abusing your authority to kidnap innocent people." Luffy, unable to contain his excitement, approached with a wide grin. "Hey, Gramps, how are you?" "Hey, Luffy," Garp said, his voice jovial. "I see you're causing trouble again. So tell me, did you get it?" He gestured toward Luffy inquiringly. Luffy proudly pulled out a file he had taken from the marine base. "Yep, here's a file detailing all his slave transactions." Garp's eyes lit up with interest as he accepted the file, flipping through the documents with growing fury. "This is quite the haul," he muttered under his breath. Nezumi's voice trembled in a panic. "Vice Admiral, please. It's not how it looks. I can prove it at my trial." Garp shot a sharp glare at Nezumi. "What trial? You'll be shot when we reach the nearest base." He growled menacingly. Marine guards moved in to secure Nezumi for transport, who began to scream in protest. Once Nezumi was taken away, Garp pulled Luffy and Hancock aside. "So, you two gave that fruit to the kid with pink hair?" he asked, pointing to Kobe, who was playing with Richie. Luffy nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, we did. We told him it's called the Gum Gum fruit." Hancock chimed in, "We couldn't let him find out what it was so soon." Garp let out a hearty laugh. "So Lilith's and Dragon's plan has officially started. This is going to be interesting." Luffy's grin widened, clearly proud of the chaos he had introduced into the world. "Yes, Joy Boy has awakened, and things are going to change."